So as I was saying, when you open a new drawing, it's going to give you two layouts. And I was telling you the benefit of using these layouts. So you can actually print, you can create this, make it A3 size, A4 size, A1 size. But you can't do that with your model sheets. You can't. Yes. A3 is double of A4. A2 is double of A3, and A1 is double of A2. You get. So just when you have A2, A1, you get A2. When you have A2, you get A3. Have A3, you get A4 and so on. You have A5 and so on. So you have this. So let's look at this sheet, what we have here. So if let me create a new drawing, Control N, and make this imperial. So I just want to show something here. Okay, so this is not giving me what I want to show you. Let's see if we have here. Okay, so I can use this to explain. Leave the drawing. Okay, let me just delete this drawing first. Okay, so when you see this, let me undo that. Okay, so when you open the sheet, depending on the size of the sheet, you would have some visual things that you need to know. So when you open a layout, you have your paper sheet, your paper, which is this white space. That's the main paper. So if it's A4, it's going to be the size of A4. If it's A3, it's going to be that size. But if you look at it, there is this dotted line, this dash line, and there is this continuous line thing. So this dash line is the printable margin, meaning anything that is within this dash line is what will be printed. So if you have any object outside this dash line, will not be printed. So it's more like margin that will be printed. So your printable margin. So that means if I have something like this now, and I want to print, only this place will be printed. The top parts will not be printed because it is past the printable margin. All right. Am I making any sense? All right. So that's what the dash line is. So this printable margin cannot be modified. You can't change it except to change the size of the paper or use a different type of paper. So if I'm using a different type, is anything from the dash line downwards or sideways. But anything here, yeah, what? Yeah, so this, yes, do you understand? So that's what this, your printable margin. Then this dash line, this one is called the viewport. So the viewport is more like the eye to your drawing. So that means without this viewport, you can't see whatever you've drawn in your model sheet. Okay? You can't see anything. So, and this viewport is something you can modify. I can select it. You notice I tried to select this dash line. I'm unable to select. I cannot select. But for my viewport, I can select my viewport. I can resize it. I can modify the shape of this viewport to give me anything I want. I can I can select it and stretch this viewport and make it smaller. Hmm? Hmm? We'll talk about why that is important. I can also decide to delete it. You notice once I delete the viewport, I don't see anything anymore. I don't see any drawing. So this is to tell you that for you to see a drawing, you need to have your viewport visible. Okay? So before we even go to adding viewports, let's look at how we can add more layouts. Because you know I told that by default you're going to be given two layouts, two additional layouts. But what if you want to print out like 10 pages? How do you add more layouts? Different ways you can add. You can use this plus to add layout. So I click on plus, it's going to add more layouts. Or you can right click anywhere here. You're going to see new layout. Right click, new layout. Okay, so it's going to be giving you same type of layout, and this layout will be given, you have your viewport here. See, I talked about that dash line, right? This one also has a dash line, but the dash line is not inside this page. If you zoom in, you notice there is this dash line outside. So that means if you are printing on the sheet, even if you get it ahead, because this has been set such that the dash line is outside the sheet. So any object you are drawing, even if you get it close to this place, it's still be printed. I just went to that drawing to show you the importance of that dash line and what it does. So using this approach will allow us to add a blank sheet. Notice when we do this, it's going to add a blank sheet here. Okay? You notice that there's no title block, it's just a blank sheet, and that's all. Then, if I right click again, you also see we also have new layout, which we've done. But we now have the second one that says from templates. So that template is what allows us to create a sheet that from which you can now choose a template that is title block. So if I say from templates, then I can choose a particular template that I want. So let's say I want to go into my sheet set. I have all these templates that I can pick from. Okay, so if I say, okay, this is the template that I want, I'll bring this template and I'll say open. And this is a ISO A3 paper size, so we'll just say okay, and it's going to bring these sheets out. You notice for this paper size, it's quite different from that. You can see your dash line here. You notice that. So that means these guys will be printed, but anything else I will not. You right click here, you go to from templates. So once you go to from templates, you can choose a sheet. Let me pause. Okay, so then you can choose a particular template you want, and that will open. So you see that this is A1. The first one was A3. So this is A1. So this is going to be a larger paper size compared to this. And see what we have. And that is really large. Eh? Yes. That's when we want to set our want to start to print out. We'll now start setting this. We'll get there. Let's just take it step at a time. So this is just how you can load. So I'm still explaining how you can load in more layouts. Okay. So now we have this layout loaded. You can also rename them. So I can two ways. You can right click on a layout and go to rename. So most of the thing is just right click. If I right click, notice this, I can call this one, whatever name I want it to be. So this one, another way is you can click on it twice. If I double click on it, it's going to go into it. I can call this name 2. All right. Then you can also delete those layouts that you feel you don't need. So if I select a layout, right click, I can delete layout. That will be deleted. I can right click. Okay. Huh? No, no, it will not. It won't. So you have to go on. Then you can also copy a layout. So let me just delete these guys. Oh, I want to rename. Then right click, delete. So I can also duplicate a layout. So if I right click on a layout, I can move or duplicate. So let's talk about moving first. So if I want this layout to be my page 1, I can. I'll just drag this layout here. So once I drag and I let go here, It brings it here. You notice while dragging, this one goes invisible. That means you can't put any layout before model. It's not possible. If I say, okay, name one should come, I can place it here. I have name one this and this. So that's how you move. Then you can also duplicate a layout by right-clicking. If you right-click on a layout, you have option to move or copy. So if I choose this move or copy, this comes up. Then it's telling me which layout do I want to. Do you understand? So it's saying, okay, because I did this move or copy on this guy, before what layout? So I'll just say, okay, I want to create a copy of this layout. So this is the layout I want to create a copy of. I'll select it. And I'll click on this, create a copy. All right. So once I click on create a copy, and I'll say, okay. So I create a copy before that. So let's say I want to create this copy. So I want to create this name one. But this name one copy, I want it to be before name two here. I want to create a copy of it. So I'll right click on this guy. You can always move to it. But just say create a copy, and this copy I want it to be before this. You can say before which layout or at the end. If I say at the end, it's going to move. So if I want to say before this, I will just say create a copy. It's going to create a copy name one before this name two. So you can right click, and that's it. Right click, delete, that's that. Okay. So let's look at this. You notice that most of these layouts have these viewports, and I don't see anything in this viewport. The reason is because this drawing is a new drawing. I've not drawn anything in a new drawing. So that's why the viewport is empty. But for this one that I created, this ISO that I use, create from templates, there is no viewport here. It's just this title block. We don't have a viewport. So what do I mean by that? If I come here and I decide to create something here, if I create something here, I've created stuff here. If I come to name one, that thing I've created is see here. If I come to name two, you will see the same thing. But if I come to this ISO 3, you won't see anything because there is no viewport. And I told you that without viewport, you can't see anything. So we need to now go and create a viewport, which is what we want to look at now. And notice again, another thing I want you to notice up top here is that if I'm in my model sheet, everything is like this. But as soon as I go to any other layout, I'm going to have an additional tab, layout tab. So I'm here, I have a layout tab, I'm here, I have a layout tab. But as soon as I go to model, that layout tab will go away. So the reason is because layout tab was made for layout. So you can do a lot of things with the layout. So if I open the layout tab in this case, so you notice we can create new layouts from here, just like we have done already. So that is another way you can create new layouts. You can create from new layouts or from templates. We can do our page setup. That's how we can set up our page to set a particular paper size. Then we also have our layout viewports. So we can decide to insert, we can create. So this is where we can create viewports. Right? So let's look at it. So if I come to this place that doesn't have a viewport, I can come all the way to my layout viewport and I click here. These are the different ways you can create viewports. Okay? We can do a rectangular viewport, polygonal viewport, or by object. So we're only going to look at these two. So if I say rectangular viewport, then it tells me I can just create a rectangular shape and I now see this. Okay. Under layout view is. Then if I say I want polygonal viewports, then polygonal viewports allow me to create my line as however shape I want it to go. Do you get? So if I trace this down, I don't have to get there. Click and see to close. Do you understand? So I'll delete. Maybe I'll create another rectangular viewport somewhere here. Then we have two different viewports in this sheet. So you ask the question that why did I drag that when I was explaining that you can actually have more than one viewport on the sheet. I'm sure you've seen some, I don't know if you have seen some, what is it called, architectural drawing file, whereby a sheet will have like maybe three different drawings. Maybe you have, it's always in the elevation views. So you have maybe the front view, then you have two end elevations somewhere. Maybe back, maybe side one and side two in the same sheet. This is what they do. So you create your layout first, then so if I come to this drawing, for instance, I can use this to do that. So we can create a viewport that shows this and create another viewport that shows this one, maybe if I have another view. Do you understand? So so that is that. But then if you look at this, it's still the same thing we are seeing all through. Can you notice? Still the same thing. What if I want to set this page so that one page here, this page is showing only this, page 2 is showing only this, page 3 is showing another one. Remember, we said layout, view, model tab, you can create anything. You can create as many drawings as you want. Then you now go to this layout to start setting them. Do you understand? So that's what this layout is used for and what model is used for. Model is where you do all your design. Once you have done doing all the design in your model sheet, you now go to your layout to start setting, bringing the ones you want in a particular page, another thing for a particular page for printout. So if I use this guy, I think this has some drawings. Okay, so you have this, I have this. This doesn't really have too many drawings. This one too is just 3 drawings. So let's say, okay, we want to have perspective view in one view, we want to have this in another sheet, then we want to have this in another sheet. Okay, so that means we need 3 sheets, right? So if I come here, let's add 2 more sheets. So we have 1, 2, 3. At the moment, all of them have the same stuff. So this one is going to hold my first drawing, which is this. So for me to set this, it's very simple. I will zoom into this page. You notice as I'm scrolling the whole page, but I want to be able to scroll and bring this guy into my view, but it's not working at the moment. So what I will do is I will zoom into a point where I will be able to see this outside the space. So once I've zoomed in, I will come into this viewport. Okay, I will come into this viewport, double click inside the viewport. Once I double click and I see this view cube and navigation, that means this viewport is active. So if I now zoom in, I'm only zooming in this viewport. So I can now use this to set this guy into this sheet. Okay. Yeah, fine. So once I'm done with this, for me to deactivate this, come outside, double click, done with this. So if I can go to the next sheet, I'll do the same approach, double click inside the viewport, zoom into this guy, set it to the screen. Once I'm done, double click outside, that is set. So I'll do the same thing for the last one, double click inside, bring this here, zoom into it till I'm fine, double click outside, and I'm fine. So if you circle between them, so that's how you can set your sheets. So if I now want to, like for instance, okay, we already know how to set these things. We can create a sheet that has a title block and border line. So that's what I'm saying, from templates, sheet, and just choose this. So maybe, okay, so let's just save this one, Imperial. Let's just choose one break. And see this, so this is a different paper size. Then this is going to load a different paper size for me. And you can see that this is quite large compared to my paper. Okay, so what can I do to this? So anytime you run into this problem and you see this stuff, how can you solve it? It's very simple. I can just select this and scale it down. So once I select this guy, I can use my scale command, SC for scale, or pick here as my base point, and I'll choose my reference option. So you can actually scale all these templates. So if I scale this, I can move it down till I get to the point where I want. So let's just say this point, and then this is back. Okay, so notice that my scaling, I make sure that I scale within this dash line. I don't want to go past this dash line. Even this one, this is meant to go up a little bit. Okay, so it's within the dash line, it's fine. This one also, I need to cross check and be sure it's within. So it's within the dash line. So if I print out, I'll still see the line. Do you understand? So that's how you can solve that. But now, anytime you use from template, you don't get to have a viewport. So that means I have to go and add my own viewport. So that's okay, create a viewport here. So maybe I'll create a rectangular viewport somewhere here for the table. I want to have my table here. I want to create another rectangular viewport for my, let's say here. So if I have a, what's it called? A table, maybe a legend for whatever component I'm using. I can also put a table here, maybe use a viewport to show the table. Okay, so I can just double click inside here, bring this into my view, and pan till I'm fine, double click outside, that's it. I'll do this for the same thing here. Zoom into this. So you can notice that in this sheet I'm having two different, so I can actually use my zoom command and zoom to this region, then double click outside, and this is there. So you can see that we now have two drawings in this case. Okay. Okay. So once we are here, let's now talk about how we can create our page setup. To set up our page. So now we've created this, and you notice that this is ANSI C something something. I don't know what ANSI C something something is. Let's assume I don't know. All I care is I want to print on A4 paper size. A4. Okay? I want to print on A4, and my printing, I want it to be landscape. You can also do portrait design. So for me to do that, and this is what I want to print on my A4, this guy, I want to print this guy on my A4, but I want it to be portrait instead of landscape. So I will come vertical. Landscape is that for portrait, the horizontal is smaller than the vertical side. For landscape, the horizontal is longer than the vertical side. So if I want to do that in this case, I have to be in that layout. Once I'm in that layout, I will right click on the layout. And once I right click, I'm going to see page setup manager. Okay? So if I click on page setup manager, it's going to load this. You notice it highlights what I want to modify. Hmm? So this is what I want to modify, layout 2. I can also create a new layout and set up that page and apply that layout to different sheets. But the reason why I don't advise using that is there will be some drawing whereby what you are placing have to be landscape. In the same project, there will be some drawing whereby what you are placing has to be portrait. Do you understand? So that's why you have to create a different layout. So what you can do is you can, if you know that you want to be consistent with the paper size you want to use, you want to be using A4 all through. So you can create two layouts, page layouts, one for landscape, one for portrait, and have every settings the same. Am I making any sense? But let's say we want to edit this. Let's edit first. We'll create our own layout. So we want to edit this guy, layout 2, and we're going to say modify. As soon as we go to modify, it brings us to this print setup. Then the first thing you have, you notice page setup, we don't have any page setup name. Okay? So we are going to look at how to create our own page setup, then we can now pick a particular page setup then. When we pick the page setup, we don't need to go through all this anymore. We would have done that. But because we don't have, so we want to go through this. So here, for the printer, it's saying we want to use Adobe Photoshop. So if you have a printer name, you can choose the printer. So let's say you've installed the printer on your system. The printer will be named here. You can now choose the printer you want to print with. But if you want to also export it as PDF, you can also choose PDF. So you see we have Adobe PDF, but I don't advise you using the Adobe PDF. The reason is because there are some things you can't, there are some settings you can't do with Adobe PDF. So instead of me using Adobe PDF, what I will choose is come here I'll go to DWG to PDF. Can you see this? So that means I want to convert this my drawing file to PDF file. So if I say DWG to PDF, PC3, anyone, then you notice I'm able to now choose paper size. Look at the difference here. This is just giving me A4. So it's not giving me standard. It's just A4, A5, all these things. But if I want to choose a proper standard, maybe it's ANSI standard or ISO standard, all these things, then I'll have to choose this to maybe DWG PDF. Then from here, I can now start to choose all this from all these standards. You can see that I have the ANSI full, I have the ISO, I have another ISO. So don't forget, I said I want this to be portrait, right? So what I want to do is I want to scroll. I said I want it to be A4 portrait, right? So I'll look for the ISO A4. You can see I have ISO A3, two A3. ISO I have two A4. Can you notice that? I have two A4. One of them is portrait, one of them is landscape. So how do you know which one is portrait, which one is landscape? We already looked at this. Anytime you're having value X by this, the first one is always horizontal and the second one is vertical. And for portraits, the vertical is longer than the horizontal, meaning the second value has to be bigger than the first value, right? So if you look at this, 420 by 290, the first one is, so this shows you that this is a landscape. But the second one here, you notice the first value is smaller than the second value. So this shows that this is portrait. Okay. Let me choose this first one. You see, if I choose this first one, you see what I have preview. If I go back, because this first one, you notice the first value is bigger than the second value. If I choose the second one, which is A4, oh, this is A3. If I choose this A4 first one, you notice this is smaller than this. Sorry, this is bigger than this. If I choose this A4 second one, this portrait. Okay. So because I said I want portrait, so I'll choose this. So the next thing I also want to set is, what do I want to print? I have option to print display, extent, layout, window. Please, for no reason should you choose any other thing other than layout. Here, under area to plot, what do you want to plot? We've already set this guy. So we want to print everything we can see in the layout. That's what we want to print. So just leave it at layout. You don't want it to be window. You notice if I say window, then I can now say this is the part I want to print, or I want to draw this part. But it doesn't really make sense. You can see what this is doing. And anytime you are doing any settings, please always preview so that you can see how it's going to print. So this is how it's going to print once you are done. So I'll click to close. So I'll change this back to layout and everything resets. And to double check, I can just preview. And this, you notice this is now shifted. Okay. Then we have to work our way all the way down. So once this is done, the next thing we want to also do is make sure this is scale 1 to 1. It's very important, please. Scale 1 to 1 here. Don't choose any scale here. I'll show you how to scale this drawing. Just leave it at 1 to 1. Then the other thing you also have is here. So this is what tells you the kind of printout you are going to have, whether it's going to be colored or black and white. Do you understand? So you can choose any of the options, but what I always like choosing is monochrome, so that it's going to force everything to black and white. Okay, so I'll say okay, monochrome, and that's that. And also, if I preview, can you see this guy? When I loaded this, what's it called? The X-ray, it was faint, right? But here it's thick. That brings us to these settings. So we can plot our object line weight. So you also notice that the line weight also changes. So if I say I don't want to plot object line weight, and I do this, that means the line weight will be consistent. You notice the difference. Okay. So it's keeping the line weights, making them consistent. That's that. But if you want to keep your line weight, so maybe you've added thickness to some objects, you can activate this. And when you preview, you see the effect of that thickness on those objects. Okay, so that's that. The same thing for the transparency. If the transparency is not checked, so that's why we are not seeing that. If I say I want to print transparency, and I preview the transparency, okay, the line weight, we need to go back. So let's get rid of this line weight. Preview. Even at that, you notice the transparency still doesn't change. So you would expect that because this guy is transparent, it should be transparent. That transparency in this case is not actual transparency property. It is an X-ray. Am I making any sense? X-ray, when we bring X-ray, is by default is going to be faint because it's an attachment. It's not that we select it, we now want to property to change transparency. Am I making any sense? If we are going to the property to change transparency, it's going to take that transparency property. Am I making any sense? So because this X-ref, the transparency still is 0. So that is going to be clear. All right. So we have that. Then we have other things you can do. Then you notice here, because this guy we chose is portrait, right? That means we need to force this guy also to portrait. Because it's meant to be portrait. We already chose this to be portrait, and this is showing us portrait, but it's forcing the printout to be landscape. That's why we're having this. It's forcing it to be landscape. So we need to also go back here and make it portrait so that everything is fine. Then if I preview now, you can see the portrait. So we need to now start to rearrange this. So once we make this portrait, and then what else? Coming to this place, you notice your quality. So I skip this. Let me just quickly talk about this quality. So this quality is talking about your print quality. And if you notice the value we have, it says DPI. If I change this value to something else, you notice we have a different DPI. Okay? We'll still do that, don't worry, we'll set it. If I change this preview, you notice the DPI goes to 50. If I change this to normal, it goes to 100. If I change this presentation, this, maximum this, and I have a custom to choose a particular value. So what are DPI? DPI means dot per inch. Dot per inch. So what does it mean? What's that concept about DPI? What is it about? So when you are printing, or when we are creating a line, really, there are pixels of dots. So it's just assuming for every one inch of an object, how many pixels do I want to have? So if I'm saying I want to have, so let's say for instance, sorry, I have to use this to illustrate. So I have this shape and I want to create this line. So let's assume I want to create a line. Let's assume this is from here. Oh, no. So this place is 1 inch. We are just assuming this is 1 inch. Okay. So this length like this is 1 inch. Let's assume this is 1 inch. And I'm saying, okay, I want to do 10 dpi. If I say 10 dpi, what I'm saying is I want to have 10 dots per inch of a drawing. Meaning, if I'm creating the drawing, if I want to create a line, the line will give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll have 10 dots in that line. If I say, okay, the next one, maybe I want this one to be 20 dpi, that means I'm going to have 20 dots. So let's assume the 20 dot is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I have 20 dots. Are you getting where I'm going at? So the higher the DPI, the more the defined, or the more the object will be defined, right? So if you compare this to 100 DPI, probably you're going to be having something that goes this way. Probably something like this, right? You're saying that this is having more detail compared to this, and this has more detail. Then if you now say, okay, well, let's assume this is 150 DPI, probably you're having something that goes this way. You get. So the DPI is what determines the quality of your object, how crisp it is. Do you understand? So when you are setting your DPI, really 150 is fine for print. 150 is fine. If you are going beyond 150 is overdue. Do you understand? So we can just say, okay, let's say for presentation, so it has already given us 200 and that's fine. This we shouldn't overdo. So it's just I'm just explaining the concept of TPI with you for you. So once you are done creating this, so we will come here and click on OK, and that would have been saved. Then if I select this, and that's already the current view, you can see that what we have now. So if I close, this is what we have. Okay, so what we can do now is we can now bring this drawing and center it into this. So we can just use our move command and move this and place it where it should be here, and select this. We can click here and move this, holding down on my shift to set this here, and I can double click to center it more. Double click outside. So if I want it to be centered, we can just select this and use this to move to the top, and that's it. Do you understand? So you notice I've set this to being a portrait, and these ones are still landscape. And this portrait will not really work fine for this because of the way this image is. You understand? So depending on whatever you want to put in the sheet, you have to look at how the image is to now set your page. So now we've set this. So let's assume we want to apply this portrait. This portrait that we've done, we want to apply it to this layout one. We can actually apply that. So how we can apply it is you right click on it, you go to page manager, then we choose the guy we want to apply to it. Once you choose it, you say set as current. If I set it, it turns it to be portrait, and that means you have to come back and go and reset it. All right. So you can use that particular setting you've done on different sheets. So let's say that, okay, we want to create, let me just take this back to the layout one. Okay. So let's say we want to create our own page setup, our own page setup. We can go there by clicking on this page setup. So if we click on page setup, it brings up this same dialog box. Just that, okay, we can now say we want to create a new page setup. And just say new, then we give this a name. So we can say Joe page setup, Joe A4. Let's say this is A2 landscape. So I know that this is landscape. So I've defined a couple of things here. It's going to be A2 size and it's going to be landscape. All right. So once I have that done, then I'm going to, so it's saying where do I want to start from? I don't want to start from any of these guys. So I'll just say from none. So I want to start from scratch. So I'll say from none, I'll click OK, and notice I now have a name here. So this name is what I will be using if I want to print out. For all my landscape pages, I can use this name. So I can now say, okay, this I'm going to be using this. Remember all these guys. So this one is going to be monochrome. We've already said this. This is going to be presentation. Then this you said it's going to be A2, right? So then you have to come here and choose an A2 size. If it's going to be ANSI or ISO, anyone you want. So let's just say we're choosing A2. It's going to be landscape. So that means the first value should be larger than the second value. So this is landscape and that's set. And also I want to double check that this is also landscape. That's done. Then this is layout. I'm fine with that. And 1.1, I'm fine with that. Do I want to add transparency? If I want to add it, add it. If I don't want to print my, so all these ones are additional things. So if I don't want line width to be printed, deactivate it. If I know that I want line code to be printed, I'll activate. If I have this, so let's just say we have all these things. And everything is fine. You can just quickly preview, and you can see that this is larger because this is A2 size. So the paper size is larger than what we have currently. So we don't care about the drawings, it's just the paper we are working on. Then I'll just click on OK, and that's it. We've created Joe landscape. Right? So let's say we want to create Joe portraits of the same stuff. So we just say new, don't forget. So this is going to be Joe A2 portraits. Then because we already have a landscape, we can start from that so that every other settings the only thing I just need to go and change is just the landscape and portrait. So I'll just say start from this Joe landscape, click OK. Then you notice all these things are now set. I don't need to come here and start doing this. The only thing I just need to do is change this to portraits and come here, change this also to the portraits option. That's just what I need to do. Every other thing is set. So it's just to make my work faster. So we have this, and then we finish, and we are close. We just close this. So once we close this, you now say to yourself, okay, now that I have done this, how can I apply it? I can actually apply it by, we've already seen how to apply here. You can right click, go to your page manager, choose what you want to apply to. So let's say we want to apply this landscape. Choose this, sorry, Joe landscape, set as current, and that's how to apply. You can also apply it in your printout. So when you want to print out, you can apply that. That's what we're going to use. We're going to do tomorrow, not now. But just to show you, you can come here to your, if you come to your prints and you want to plot under your, if I say I want to plot, okay. So if I say I want to use my batch plot, so we'll talk about this extensively. Okay, so if I say my plot, I have option to choose here now. You notice in that layout, that is more of a setting layout, but here you want to do final print. So you can now choose a particular page setup. So whatever setup you choose here, all these things will gray out because you've already set them. You can just preview and see this how it's going to look like. Okay. Then from here you can start setting your page and just print out. All right. So I think I'm going to stop here for today. Then on Friday, we're going to look at plotting. Then we're going to, so I will develop a drawing before Friday. I'll have like maybe 5 different stuff. We'll do page setup and try and print them. So on Friday, we're going to be looking at these 2 print options. So using the plot and using the batch plot. So what batch plot will do is do multiple prints. So how we can plot many sheets at the same time without having to go back and do it one by one. So let me stop here.